Tonight, somewhere in the world, two strangers are sitting across from each other at a dinner table. They are nervous. They are trying to say the right things. They are performing a ritual so familiar that nobody questions it anymore. But this ritual, the date, the meeting, the careful choreography of modern attraction is barely 100 years old. What happened before that is something almost no one talks about. Go back far enough, and there were no restaurants, no phones, no text messages that could be ignored for 3 days to seem less desperate. No rules about who should speak first, or wait longer, or want less. There was just a fire, a sky full of stars that no one had named yet, and two people standing in the dark with something moving through them that neither of them had a word for. That feeling had a purpose, and it was nothing like what we've been told. For most of human prehistory, the average group was somewhere between 15 and 50 people. Anthropologists call them bands. They moved together, slept near each other, hunted together, mourned together. Everyone knew everyone. There were no strangers. There were no first impressions in the way we understand them now, which means almost everything we call romantic chemistry, the nervous electricity of meeting someone new, didn't exist. And yet something happened between people. Something that pulled them toward specific individuals and not others. Something that made one person want to stay close to another even when there was no reason to. Researchers at the University of New Mexico spent years studying the behavioral patterns of isolated hunter-gatherer communities and found something that stopped them cold. Pair bonding, the formation of deep, sustained attachment between two specific people, appeared to emerge not from beauty, not from status, not from anything external. It emerged from time, specifically from shared danger. Here's what the data suggests. When two people face fear together, real fear, not the simulated kind, the neurochemical response in their bodies is nearly identical to the neurochemical response of early attachment. The same compounds, the same pathways, the same sensation that modern people describe as falling in love. This was not coincidence. This was the mechanism. For ancient humans, love did not begin across a crowded room. It began at the perimeter of the firelight, where the darkness pressed in and something in the trees made a sound no one recognized. It began in a moment when two people looked at each other and both understood, without speaking, that the other one was real. There was no courtship ritual as we understand it. There was proximity, repetition, survival, and then something shifted. Researchers studying the remains of early human settlements in the Levant, some of the oldest evidence of sustained pair living we have, noticed something unusual. At certain sites, two skeletons were found in positions that could not be explained by accident or convenience. They were oriented toward each other, not touching, just facing. The archaeologists working the sites stood in silence for a long time. Nobody buried strangers like that. What was happening in those communities was something deeper than the modern concept of romance, and something stranger than simple survival. It was a kind of recognition, a decision made slowly over months or years that one specific person was worth protecting even at cost to yourself. Evolutionary biologists have a cold name for this. They call it reciprocal altruism. But that name strips something essential out of what it actually felt like to live it. Because here is what no textbook mentions. Ancient humans didn't fall in love the way we describe falling, fast, sudden, involuntary. They grew into attachment the way a root grows into stone, slowly, invisibly, until one day it was impossible to remove. There were no weddings. There were no declarations. There were no words like commitment or loyalty or forever, because nobody was thinking in those abstractions. There was only behavior. You stayed near someone. You shared food with them when food was scarce. You woke up during the night to check if they were still breathing. And at some point, without ceremony, without announcement, that became what they were to each other. Anthropologist Helen Fisher spent decades studying the biochemistry of attachment across cultures and across time. What she found was that the human brain, at its deepest level, does not distinguish between ancient love and modern love. The same three systems, desire, attraction, attachment, are present in every human being alive. They were present in the first humans. They are present now. But what activates those systems has changed completely. And this is where it gets disturbing. For most of human history, attachment was earned through reality, through shared meals and shared cold and shared grief, through watching someone handle fear, through knowing that this person specifically would not leave when things became difficult. Because in a world without contracts or institutions, the only proof of love was behavior over time. What no one had to think about, because it was simply unavoidable, was depth of exposure. You knew the people around you completely, not because you asked the right questions, but because you saw them every single day in every condition. Hungry, afraid, Generous, selfish, exhausted, alive. You did not choose someone based on how they appeared on their best day. You chose someone you had already seen on their worst. And then slowly, everything changed. Settlements grew. Villages became towns, towns became cities. The group of 15 people expanded into a population of thousands and then millions. And suddenly the ancient mechanism, the slow, accumulative, reality-based process of attachment, had no room to operate. We built new rituals to replace it. Rules, ceremonies, institutions. We created courtship as a compressed version of what used to take years. We invented the wedding as a public declaration of what used to be a private, wordless understanding. And something in the replacement was almost right, but not quite, because the brain still runs the ancient software. It still expects the ancient inputs. It still needs the specific combination of proximity and danger and repetition and time to build the kind of attachment it was designed to build. What it gets instead is something faster, cleaner, more convenient, more certain, on the surface. And then people find themselves married to someone they realize, quietly, they never actually knew. Not because they weren't paying attention, but because the conditions that would have revealed the truth were never part of the process. The skeletons in the Levant faced each other across 3,000 years of silence. They had no ceremony, no witnesses, no words carved into stone. They had something we gave away without knowing it had a name. Somewhere tonight, the same feeling that moved through those two people is moving through someone sitting in a lit room, staring at a small glowing screen, waiting for a message back. The mechanism is identical. The conditions are not. And that gap between what we are built for and what we have built is the quietest crisis no one is talking about.